So hello folks, I am Deepak. Your guide for today's video will be learning about the concepts of rows and column widgets in Flutter framework. So is there something you'd be interested in? Are you a beginner in Flutter? Sounds right. Sounds about right. So let's just watch the video, understand the concepts of rows and column in Flutter. So for this video, I'm gonna assume that you have the basic understanding of the Flutter framework, like you know how to run an application, how to create a project in Flutter. If you don't, then I suggest you should skip this video and learn the beginning basics of the Flutter framework before watching this video. So if you have some knowledge about the Flutter framework, you know how to run an application, how to create a project, what is a scaffold widget, how to run an app. So then you should continue watching this video if you are confused about the concepts of rows and columns. So does this sound like something you'd be interested in? So yeah, let's jump right in. So let me just import an image and we'll get started. Yeah, I was somewhere over here. Yeah, this is the image. Yeah, so look at the image, just have a look at the image and see what do you see. Like we see a app bar, right? The first thing we see is an application bar. Let me just go ahead and label it app bar. Nah, I don't want to share it. App bar, right? So here we like this is. So what is a row? What is the definition of a row? Okay, so if let's say this is your phone screen. Yeah, I have to work on my drawing skills. Never thought I'd be using him after 10th class, but here we are. So let's just say that this is your phone screen. Now, if you want to write some, like create a container over here, okay, and then you want to create a container right next to it, what do you use? You wrap them both with a row. Like if you want one thing placed just right next to the other, then you should use a row widget. Let's just say that if you want, like you want this container, then you want a container right below this container, then you should wrap them both with a column, because if you want one thing placed right below the other, then you should use the column widget. So we have the definitions out of the way. Now let's understand what is going on over here. Let's just break it down one by one. We have the app bar at the top, right? Let's just forget about it for a minute. Then we have something that seems like a row, because you see, as the definition of the row, these both were wrapped in a row and this was right next to the other, right? So this must be a row, right? Do you agree? Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. And these two look very similar to each other, so this must also be a row, right? Because look at it, this is also similar to this, just the height is little bit smaller than the upper one, right? So this must also be a row. And let's just come to the third. Now now if I want to just display a container over here, what will I use? I will use a container. So this is neither a row, neither a column. This is just a simple container with the text inside of it, right? Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, so we just divided our widgets into three widgets that are two row and one container. Now let's look at the top. Okay, now if let's say I have this screen, okay, I want one container over here, other over here, then again one over here, one over here, and then I'm just replicating this UI again. Okay, so nothing, I'll just zoom in on it. Yeah, so this replicates. So now this is the row, this is the row, and this is a container. Now if we look at the above, now if we look at the above UI, what do we see? We see that if we want one thing placed right below the next, right below the other one, we have to use a column, right? So here I want you to see, just think of this as a container. Okay, just think of this as a container. Think of this as a container too. Now the third one is already a container. Now if you have three containers and you want them placed one below the other, what will you use? You'll wrap them all with a column, right? So let's just do that. Wrap them all with a column. Now instead of the containers, what we have is a row, row 1 and row 2, and then this we have a container. So to summarize, we can have a row or a container or another column inside of a column. Okay, this doesn't mean that we can, like, if you start the parent widget you are using is a column, that doesn't mean that you cannot use another column inside a column. That's just how it works. You can use even a row. That is what we are doing here. We have a column that is a parent widget, then we are starting with a row 1 and row 2. We are closing them both. Okay, now this is the important part. If we are beginning a widget, then you should also close a widget. Like, this could cause some errors if you don't. The Flutter UI is pretty smart. The Flutter framework is pretty smart. It'll notify you that you have not closed this. It'll show some error. Okay, so we have seen that if we consider these as containers, three containers stacked one below the other, then we can assume that these are wrapped in a column, right? That is what is happening over here. Now look at this UI. Just think of this first one as a container, second one as a container, and third one as a container. What is happening? These are placed one below the other, so these must be wrapped in a column widget, right? Row 0, row 1, and the container. So if we want to write the code, now can we write some code? I'll just share up all of these. Now looking at the UI, we can see that this is, let me select the pen. Okay, this thing happens. That's my first time making a video, so don't judge, guys. Scaffold, right? At the top we have an app bar. We can see over here, this is an app bar, so we'll use an app bar property. We'll open this and then close this. This would contain a title, grid spacing, demo, right? Put a comma. Like, now to distinguish the properties, we have to write a comma, separate them by a comma. Now this is a property, right? Next property we're going to use is body. Body, as the name defines, is the entire thing, right? The entire space of the screen. Now we are going to wrap this body with a column, because that's what we decided. We said that if these are three containers stacked one below the other, then we need to wrap them with a column, because that is what column does. Children. Now we have row 0, row 1, and a container. Then we close this bracket, right? Then we also need to close the column bracket and put a comma. Okay, now we have this. We have done this. We have understood how the breaking down process works. Now should we just get started with the code? I believe we should, right? Yeah. Okay, so let me just start an Android project. Let me just open an Android Studio. So now we have to just go ahead and create a new project in Flutter. Okay, get rid of all the code that is there. Just create one of your own. Void main run app my app this my app is my app is just a name of the class that we're going to create now. Okay. Now the first widget that we need is the parent widget that we need is always a material widget, right? Because we are going to use a scaffold widget that needs some material properties that this widget provides. Now this widget has an home property, as you can see over here. Now this home property can link to a class that would return a widget, or we can directly write the widget over here. Okay, we have the scaffold over here. Now the first thing we discussed, okay, the first thing we discussed was the app bar, that this top portion app bar. We need to create this, right? We need to create this app bar. Now if we divide the app bar, we have a widget over here and a text. We have basically two widgets, one over here, the other is a text widget. So we have the app bar on the top. We'll be creating an app bar widget. Okay, the first property that it takes is a title grid spacing demo. Now in order to bring the properties of any widget, just press Control space on Windows and Command space on Mac. Okay, so we have this leading property. Now the leading property is this, this is the leading property. If we wrap anything in the leading property, it will start from the left. Okay. So now in the leading property, okay, let's just write leading over here, and here we can see that it takes a widget. Now we just saw that it takes a widget icon start back. Okay, so let me just also open an emulator and just show the progress to you. Okay, so as you can see that now the emulator, in the emulator we have the application built right over here, as you can see that. Okay, so we are done with the application bar. So the next thing we have to do is start with the body. Now as we discussed, the first widget that we'll use is the column. Now to make things easier, we are gonna have a simple example of column. Okay, we're gonna wrap it with a container with the width of 200 pixels, height of 200 pixels, and we're gonna give it a color. Okay, now we just want to duplicate this a couple of times and change the color. Okay, so now you can see that we have now as you can see we have three containers that are left aligned to the screen, and they are one below the other. So if we again have a look at the UI, we can see that as I said in the example over here, let me just take it to the level. Okay, yeah, my PC is lagging. Okay, so now as in the example over here, I said that let's just suppose that this row was wrapped with a container. This row was also wrapped with a container, and this automatically is a container. Then we have to wrap them all with the column if we want them one below the other, right? Now that's what we are doing. We're just simply, instead of this row, first we we are using a container, and then also a container, then a container again. Okay, so we have 3 containers. Now what we need to do is, we got half of the UI. Okay, what we need to do is, we just need to replace this container with a row. Okay, and just kind of wrap this container with a row, and then this container would be a child, and we also need to have another container inside this one row that will complete one section of the UI. Okay, so that will complete this upper part of the UI. Now we just need to wrap these 2 containers inside the row. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so now we can just click on show context actions, and then just select wrap with the row. Okay, you can either do this, or you can just manually write a row, then cut paste, cut this container, and then put it inside the child. Now if we just leave it like this and then refresh, you can see that the bottom 2 are centrally aligned. Now this top one is left aligned, and the bottom 2 are centrally aligned. Now this is because of a property of column, that is cross axis alignment. We'll not get into cross axis alignment for now, because the main concept we need to clear in this video is what are basically rows and column, how you can use one inside the other to create a beautiful UI or contain some weird patterns. That's what we're doing in this video. Okay, so now let me just create another. Okay, now if we refresh this, we can see that we have 2 containers, one next to the other, but we have some kind of a problem. That is the overflow problem. Now the reason for an overflow problem is that we can go over here and discuss what is the overflow error, because this is an error that comes in the beginning. This is an error that frustrates a lot of beginner coders. Let's say this is your smartphone. Now the total width of your smartphone is, let's say, 360 pixels, and the height, let's say it is 700 pixels. Now if we look into the code, what I have done is I've hard coded that this container will contain 200 pixels of width and 200 pixels of height. Now if we look at the height, we have 700 pixels of total height minus 200, we are still left with 500 pixels. Okay, so there won't be an overflow error from the height side, but from the width side we have wrapped it with 200 pixels, and we are left with only 160 pixels. Now we create a second one, we just wrap it exactly similar, 200 pixels of height. Now we have remaining width that we have is 160 pixels, and what we are hard coding is 200 pixels, and the difference would be 40 pixels. Now this is the amount of overflow that you are seeing on the Flutter. Now it will differentiate from devices. Okay, I have a 40 pixel overflow because my device width is 360 pixels, but yours could be different, okay, depending on the width of the device emulator you are using. Okay, so what we need to do is, we should not hard code this, right? We know that we want 2 containers that should extend, we know that we need these 2 containers that should just fill up the width of the total screen. So what we are going to do is, we're going to wrap them in expanded. Okay, wrap with a widget, expanded. And then Just see, now the error is gone. What expanded does it is fill all of the available space, including the width and the height that is required. Okay, now we have hard coded these values, but these values are not actually applied. Okay, we can just remove it and still have the same result. No, we can't have the same results. Okay, so what expanded does it is fills up the remaining width of the screen. It just gives them the exact same width. Okay. Okay, so we have that out of the way. Now we have, if you look at this, we have almost created the upper UI. Yeah, I know that we need to give it a little more height, but we'll do that at the end. Right now, for now, we're just focusing on what we need to do. Okay, so now we have seen that we created a column. We have created a column, the children of the column row. We have created a container, wrapped it with expanded so that it fills up the rest of the width. Then we are going to we have achieved 1/3 of the UI what we needed. We have created this part over here, right? Now if we look at it, the below part is also the same, similar, just the colors of the container are different. So what we'll do is we'll just cut this copy this container. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just get rid of this container. Okay, we'll duplicate. So to duplicate a row we have, or any widget, we just need to select it and press Ctrl D and it'll duplicate, and here we need to insert a comma because that's how we differentiate between different widgets. Now we just refresh the screen. You can see that these all sort of joined each other, right? That is because they have the exact same color. What we can do is we can change the color to blue and red, and now that we refresh it, you can see we have achieved 1 second of the UI that we needed. Now the third one as you see is not wrapped within a row, you know? It is just wrapped, it's just filling all the remaining width. So one way you can do this is with double, you can just write the width as double or infinity. What this does is it takes up the entire width of the screen. We'll just color it blue with a Tiffany, no blue. I'm out of colors, guys. Yeah, we'll just write it black. Okay, so now that you see that we have almost created the UI, right? The only thing left is to define the height. You know, this should take 1/3 of the height, and then the remaining should also take 1/3 of the height. No, this should take, like, okay, you get the gesture. You get the idea. This need to take more height than these combined two. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're gonna now what we have done is we have basically created half of the UI. We just need to increase or decrease some height here and there. Okay, so what we have done in this row one, let's say okay, so we have hard coded that it needs to be of 200 pixel in height, but we have not hard coded the width. We have wrapped it with an expanded. So what expanded does is it takes all the available width and assigns it to it. Okay, so now that we have two expanded, so the total width that was 360 pixels got divided to them both 180 pixels each, so that we don't have any overflow errors like we did before. Okay, so expanded widget, that is one use of expanded widget. Then the other use, which is also how it is widely used, is that let's say let's get to the sketchboard. Okay, so now let's say this is my phone. Okay, I want something to take 1/3 of the width, 1/3 of the height, and the other thing to take the remaining. So what am I gonna do? I'm going to wrap it with expanded, but with one property of expanded. Okay, that property is called flex. I'm gonna give it a value. I need it to take, like, this is this should be thrice as big as the this one. So I'll just give it a flex value of 3. Okay, that's it. The expanded will be ended over here. So this one too, I'll wrap it with expanded, but this time I'll give a flex value of 1. So what it does is that it takes the total flex values. Okay, 3 plus 1, the total is 4. So what it will do is it'll assign 3 by 4th of the height to this widget over here. Let's say that is 400 pixel. Okay, and the remaining 1/4 of height, that is the height over here, is the total height of the screen. Okay, it will assign that to this container over here. Let's say that is 100 pixels. I'm just taking these figures as an example, but you get the idea. If we want this expanded to be bigger, this container to be bigger, what we'll do is we'll just simply wrap it with expanded and give it a flex value of 4. So now it will take 4 by 5th of the height of the screen. Okay, so that is how expanded works, using the flex value. In the UI we can see that, let's say we have a total of 5, let's say we have a total of 700 pixels. Okay, we want this to take 3 times the width. Okay, we can just wrap it to any number. Okay, just assume a number in your mind. Let's say I'll assume 6. I've assumed the number 6. So I want this to take 4 parts of 6, that is 4/6 of the height, and then this one to take let's just say this 3. Okay, 3/6 of height, that is basically half the available height, and then this one to take 2 by 6 of height, and this one remaining, that will be 1 by 6 of height. So what we'll do is we'll wrap each of these rows and contain each of these row. Basically we'll wrap the parent widget with an expanded and with the flex value of 3, and then 2, and then 1. Using this, they'll take the appropriate height that we want them to. Okay, so now we're just going to wrap this row with the expanded flex 3. So I'm just gonna leave this expanded over here, okay, with a height of 200 pixels, and see what happens. Okay, just let me refresh. Now you can see that there's a gap at the top and the bottom. That is because we have hard coded that it needs to be 200 pixels of height. So we'll just remove that, and now that we refresh it, it takes up all of the available height. Okay, so we are getting there, right? We're getting there. What do we need to do? We're going to wrap this one too with expanded, and this time we're going to wrap it with flex 2. Now that we refresh it, we can see that there's also some white gaps. That is because we have still hard coded the height over here. So we're just gonna comment this height and refresh. Now we can see that we are done. Okay, so as a plus pointer, what we can do is we're going to increase this height a little bit, 4, 2, and then we are going to wrap this as well, and we are going to put a comma over here, and we're going to comment out the height. So now we have the UI. Okay, so as you can see that we have created this UI successfully. Yeah, I know I messed up the colors a bit, but the main point of the video was not getting the colors right, it was getting the UI right. So I hope you have learned something from this video. Now in this video I've just talked about the basic concepts of rows and column. Now there's a whole lot of other dimension to basically columns and rows. I'm gonna leave some reference links in the description below so that you can check them out if you want to. Some video, just leave it in the comments and I will create a video if you want. So till that time, and I hope you understood the concept of columns and widgets. We started from a basic point of view. We started from a basic from a basic understanding of what a column does and what a row does, and then we expanded on it by using a row inside a column widget. So I hope you have learned something in this video. If you want to dive deeply into columns, I have leave some reference links in the description for some articles you can read out. And yeah, voila. Thanks for watching the video. Voila. A sub to the channel would be fantastic, and I'll see you folks in the next one.